Hello! Welcome back. Today we're here to talk about 2008's The Incredible Hulk, which incredible is a
loose term.
It's just the title of the movie. Anyway,
it's an okay Hulk.
Let me talk. Yeah, it's way better Hulk, an improved Hulk. The improved Hulk. Let's call it that. Let's talk plot and story. I don't have any major issues other than it doesn't feel like it goes anywhere. And now let me explain that a little bit. I'm going to use a little analogy that's popped in my head when I've thought about this movie in the past. I call it the cat and the mouse and the rhino. So, in the beginning, you got this mouse, represented by Bruce Banner.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Banner wants some cheese, which is the cure to his Hulkdom. You also have a cat, General Ross in the U.S. military. They want to catch the mouse because they want other mouses. Mice, excuse me, yes. They want more mice. The cat is searching really hard for the mouse is searching really hard for the cheese. Eventually, the cat finds the mouse and begins to chase him, and eventually corners the mouse. At which point, the mouse turns into a rhino and stomps on the cat. That's Act 1. Act 2. The mouse is looking for some cheese. He really wants the cheese, really badly.
Which is the cure.
This is the cure, yes.
Right. I didn't know where he was going with this analogy until that moment.
The cat still wants the mouse. It found a way to find the mouse again, and there's another chase in which the cat finally corners the mouse. At which point, the mouse turns into a rhino and stomps on the cat. That's Act 2. Mm-hmm. Act 3. The cat has finally found a way to get the mouse without the mouse turning into a rhino. However, in doing so, it accidentally...
Only because the mouse found the cheese.
The mouse found the cheese, and all of a sudden the mouse is too fat and full to run away, so the cat catches the mouse. But in doing so, the cat accidentally releases a Triceratops on New York. In which case, the cat must now release the mouse so the mouse can turn into a rhino, and the rhino fights a Triceratops, and eventually comes out on top. And that is the Incredible Hulk. All three acts are the exact same thing, repeated. And to me, that doesn't mean it goes anywhere. It goes very repetitive, and by the end, I'm done watching. The first act is fun to watch because it feels kind of new. But after a couple of rounds of that, it just gets repetitive and kind of boring and kind of dull. So I don't hate the plot by any means. I just think it needed more direction to make it more interesting.
Yeah, you kind of lost me on the analogy there for a while, but I think we're all on the right track now. Here's the issue with the plot and story. Now, I think that there is a plot, and the plot is more or less government wants Hulk blood.
Yes.
Because the government gets Hulk blood, and by government I mostly mean military. If military gets Hulk blood, then they can make super soldiers, like they did. That was basically the plot of Captain America, but several years earlier.
Right.
Now, the issue more. So I like that. I like that the Hulk is or that Bruce Banner rather is I don't think that anybody else should have to deal with this because I'm dealing with this, and it's super not cool. Right. Mm-hmm. And I also like that so I understand the government and I understand him. And then they throw in the Triceratops, was it? Who is some dude who's just I want to fight. I like fighting, and fighting is cool. Is this guy a fighter? If he's a fighter, I want to fight him. Mm-hmm. This guy said the word fight more than anybody else in the movie.
Yep.
And that guy, in my opinion, was the reason that the story was kind of dumb. But... they needed to have another Hulk for him to fight because in all of the MCU movies, for at least the first half, they end up having to fight an evil version of themselves.
Right.
Which is cool, I guess. We'll talk about that later on, probably. Well, we can talk about it now. It's cool to see that the only thing that stops a world's domination and a superhero is a code of ethics.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing to see. I feel like we needed 1 or 2 movies at most of that, and we ended up with 6.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Anyway, I think that the story, I liked the story. It didn't move forward a ton, but I liked the motivation of all of the characters. I feel like this would have been better as a short film, more than a full-length film.
Agreed.
But I gave the story a 3.5. It had something to do. It just took a while to get there.
I gave it a 2.5 because it's not bad. I've seen worse by far. The Superman movies, the old Christopher Reeve ones, took an hour to figure out what the plot was. The Incredible Hulk, you know what the plot is the whole time. And I'll give it that. It's clear. It's to the point. It's just that the point repeats itself too much. That's the biggest issue I have. So a 2.5 seemed like a pretty good middle ground for it.
Absolutely.
He told me what he wanted to do. He wants it out of me. He wants to dissect it so that he can replicate it. He wants to make it a weapon.
The acting and characters in this movie left a little to be desired, but I will say this, I didn't hate anybody as an actor.
No.
There was a few people that I was like, actually, most people I was like, I could go either way. They could have found somebody better, but they certainly could have found a lot of worse people. So I didn't hate any of the acting, and the characters were a little weak, as I'm sure Eric will talk about, but as far as like General Ross, I did like him. I liked his character. He's very similar to all of the other generals in movie and TV history. You know who he's very similar to, although like a little bit less nice, is General Lane from Superman and Lois, the TV show that came out this year. This year being 2021, if anybody's still watching this later on. Yeah. They're very, very similar in that regard, except General Lane is like a little bit kinder, but his priority is not family or making people happy. His priority is making sure that the American people are safe.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. My biggest thing with them is everybody, this kind of reminded me a little bit of Superman Returns in that no one was bad, but they were all pretty bland in their acting style. Liv Tyler, who plays the main girl, Bruce's girlfriend, I think she's really pretty. I've always have, but she's not a great actress. And her line delivery was pretty rough to watch in this movie. I'm not a big Edward Norton fan. I'm also going to throw that out there. I know that a lot of people really do like him. He's not an offensive actor to me. I just don't like. There's something about him.
He was super dull.
Yeah,
I feel like he's an actor that is bored.
That's a good way to put it. He seems like he just kind of phoned this in because he's here for the paycheck, and he just kind of does his thing. It's just not interesting to watch. Never I found him interesting or engaging to watch. I'm glad they replaced him. I'm not usually glad when they replace the main hero in a franchise, but I'm glad they replaced him because I think Mark Ruffalo did it better later on.
Yeah, I agree. I like Mark Ruffalo better as an actor, though.
I like the actor that played General Ross. I do. I think he's a good actor. General Ross is just so fake to me because, and Ben already mentioned I was going to see this way, but the thing is, and a lot of people do this. Like there was an army guy, I believe, in Jurassic World who had the same problem where he wanted to weaponize the dinosaurs, and that's kind of what this guy wanted to do. He wanted to weaponize the Hulk, and those characters are just so unrealistically stupid because General Ross has seen what Hulk can do. He's seen that causes way more damage. He almost died the first time he met the Hulk, as did his daughter, and he still wants to pursue this as like a maniac, and that just does not feel real. It feels stupid. He's the character that you're just gonna hate because of how dumb he is, and I don't like that in General Ross. And then the villain Blonsky, who ends up becoming the Abomination or the Triceratops in my analogy. And Ben already alluded to this, but he has no motivation at all
except to fight.
Yeah, he wants to fight. He wants to be the best fighter. And so he decides he's going to go through these crazy experiments and he's going to do the rest. Like, that is just the lamest, weakest motivation anybody could have. And so
a lot of Marvel villains have really weak motivation.
Most Marvel villains are weak motivation, but they're better than that.
Yeah, to an extent. I will say that this was an excellent predecessor to the majority of the MCU as far as weak villains go.
Yeah, I would say that he's weaker than most of them.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but most of them. So all in all, like I said, the acting's not bad. The acting's not the problem. The problem is what they did with the characters and that it's bland acting. And so I would give it a 2 out of 5 for acting characters.
I gave it a 3.5 because I think that the acting was good enough that it deserves some points. Those people were doing the best that they could for the most part. The characters, they had their weaknesses. I think that most of the characters you could understand their motivation. I mean, like you said, there's some people that you couldn't understand, and there's some people that were over the top with what their motivation was. But for the most part, I think that they did the best they could, and so I gave it a 3.5. It's not by any means good, but it could certainly be better.
Or worse.
Or worse.
If you took it from me, I'm going to put you in a hole for the rest of your life.
The action to me is the best part of this movie. I really like the fight. I know it's kind of the same thing. We have this the White Hero versus himself with the Hulk versus the Abomination, but man, they got some cool fighting parts in that movie. It's like really brutal. Like at one point, Hulk's ripping the police cars in half and
Using him as brass knuckles.
Yeah, and pounding the dude with them. It's a cool scene. It's fun to watch. It's the most memorable part of this movie to me is that last battle. Yeah. When I think of the Incredible Hulk, I think of that battle.
Absolutely. I don't think of anything else.
No, the rest of it. I will also say...
Well, and the factory.
That's the other thing I was going to say is the first scene where you get Bruce running through Brazil. That was kind of fun to watch because the guy's like, he's clearly knows the terrain. Because he goes through like this closet at one point, and then he managed to hop over the next building. The other guy falls through because he doesn't know the terrain. Like that was some cool thoughts. And then in the factory, when they finally get him to Hulk out, and you just see him like, and you don't see the Hulk, but you just see this kind of like almost horror type of scene. It's kind
of reminiscent of the Batman Begins, where Batman is in the shipping yard.
Yeah,
where you don't really see him a whole lot, and then when you finally do see him, it's only to like allude to the fact that okay, this Batman's here now.
Yeah, or Hulk is here.
And that was the same with this one. It was Hulk. It was. People were running away from him, and then you'd see them disappear. Mm-hmm. And then you'd see like a hand. You saw a foot at one point, and then you'd see the Hulk finally. So that was a really cool scene.
Yeah, I like that.
The Hulk shows up 3 times in this movie. 4 if you count the time in the lab, but I don't. And of those, 2 out of the 3 were really good. The third one was good. It was fine. It was in broad daylight. They were fighting on a college campus for some reason, and The issue with that scene is it was just a lot of bullets hitting him, and it was very, very predictable what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then they bring out the big sonic guns, and the only thing that I could think of was, man, this is every time that Superman goes bad, they use these exact tricks. First they start with the bullets, then they bring out the sonic gun, and then eventually they find the kryptonite, right? And in this case, there was no kryptonite. So the Hulk... gets hit by the sonic blasts, and that holds him down for a little bit, but then he sees Betty Ross. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, that makes him get up and throw something big at the sonic guns and take them out. I will say that was the weakest fight scene.
Yeah.
But I will also say that I didn't hate it. I gave action as a whole a 4. I felt like there was plenty of action, and the action looked good enough. And that last scene is... brutal, but also really good.
Yeah, I dock it more for that second scene, mostly because it reminded me too much of the first one, where there's a chase, and then there's just a bunch of bullets flying, and this time it was in daylight, so it wasn't as interesting because there wasn't the, like, where is the element of it. Mm-hmm. I said this, I think, when we reviewed the first Hulk, but Hulk versus the military has never been interesting to me because nothing they do is going to affect him, and he's just going to completely annihilate them, which he does. So I don't love that scene. Also, the fact that they just roll their tanks and U.S. military weapons up on a college campus.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
It kind of pulls me out of it a little bit. I'm like, heck no, that's not. Yeah, so I gave it a 3 out of 5. I could, you know what? I'll bump it up to a 3.5. I think it's good. Those 2 of the 3 scenes are really good. I just that one scene, when you get a third of it, that bothers me as much as it does. It's going to dock it a little bit, but the rest of it is pretty good. I'd give it a 3.5.
Right. Cinematically, this movie was neither terrible nor great. There were some things that I really liked. They brought back the TV show music in one scene. I wish that they had that more, but I liked that music. I didn't dislike the main Hulk theme, but it was super forgettable.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is I actually really do like it when I'm watching it. I'm like, oh, this is some good music for the tone of the movie they're going for, but I never remember how it goes after I'm done watching it.
Right. And the tone of the movie was very clear, and it's extremely different from anything else in the MCU.
Yeah.
And I actually appreciated that, because the MCU... I like the MCU, for the most part. But I have a couple of issues with it, and most of those issues are the villains, but... The other thing is that the tone does get a little old after a while. That's why when people think of the best MCU movie, most people think, or at least in the early phases, they think of Captain America: Winter Soldier, which had a little bit of a heavier tone.
Yeah.
So this movie, I thought that the tone was pretty good, and I liked for the most part the way that things looked. I had kind of mixed feelings about the Hulk. His hair just looked off.
His hair was so bad,
but everything else was like fine. They made him look more human than gorilla. which I kind of appreciated. Now, that said, the Abomination was not just an abomination by name.
Yeah, he was really
looked
bad.
Terrible. He looked awful. And I just couldn't support the guy, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. Nothing really pops in this movie as great. I do like I said, I do like the score. If there's one thing I was going to say that really makes me like the cinematics, it is the score, even though, again, I don't ever remember how it goes after I'm done watching it. The Hulk looks worlds better than he did in the original Hulk movie. But I still... I can't...
It's hard to describe why it's not good.
It just... Something about it doesn't look great.
Yeah.
I don't know what... The hair's bad, but that's not the only thing. I don't know what it is. It's probably just dated CGI. But whatever it is, there's something about the way Hulk looks that bothers me. But not enough to really dock it. The Abomination is considerably worse looking. He kind of looks like... I said this to Ben when we were watching it. I thought he looked like the... what's the dude? Batman v Superman?
Doomsday.
Doomsday. He looks like Doomsday from Batman v Superman, which came out a lot later, which is a shame on that. We'll get to that movie eventually.
But he also looks a little bit like the vampires from I Am Legend. And they are vampires. Look it up. They're not zombies. If they were zombies, why would they burn in the sunlight? They're vampires. Anyway, he just doesn't look good.
No, he doesn't. So I gave it a 2.5 on cinematic scale because it doesn't bother me necessarily, but nothing looks good enough to where I'm like, oh, that was really good. So 2.5's fine.
Ladling into yourself. But clearly it worked. Let's assume you don't understand a word I'm saying, but if you'll just get back on the table, I can fix this.
On an entertainment scale, I'm not going to lie, I struggle with this one quite a bit. Out of all the movies in the MCU, this is the one I find the most boring to watch. And again, I think it really just comes down to the fact that the 3 acts in the movie are the exact same and it doesn't progress in the storytelling. That said, I can watch it and be fine. Like, this is one, I can't watch it often, but if I watch, I probably average, just because I tend to go through these journeys through the MCU, and I usually watch this one along with it because it is part of the MCU. But I can usually average watching this movie about once a year or so and be fine. And any more than that would probably drive me crazy. It's just not good enough for me to be extremely into it. And so on an entertainment scale, I gave it a 2 out of 5. It's not terrible. There are way worse and more boring movies out there to watch, but it's just not anything that would make me crave to rewatch it.
Yeah. Out of the 2 Hulk movies, if the scale was, 0 to 5, 0 being Hulk 2003, 5 being the Incredible Hulk, then this would be a well-deserved Incredible. But this movie is not super fun to watch.
No.
If you're going to watch any part of this movie, you can pretty much skip the whole second act. And you'll be fine. That's why I think this movie would have been a good short film. I think if you had the first act and the third act, and you just kind of got some of the major plot points in there, then this would be a great movie.
No, absolutely.
Well, maybe not a great movie.
It would have been a much better movie.
I gave it a 2.5, and I do think that that's the best that it can deserve, which brings my total to a 3.2.
Yeah, mine goes up to a 2.5. It's actually right in the middle of like bad and good. It's just it couldn't get any headway off to go either way for me. It's watchable. There's things about it that are fun and not fun, but are good enough to make it decent. But all in all, it just is a very bland movie to me. It just always has been.
Yeah. It's nothing special.
Yeah.
And it gets between the two of us a 2.85.
Yeah. So that's our take on The Incredible Hulk. I actually don't really know what most people have never seen this movie. That like a lot of big MCU fans have either never seen it or don't remember anything about it. So I'd actually be curious to know what other people, any of our viewers' thoughts on this movie is, because if
everybody who watches this leaves a comment below, that will have a sample size of about 8.
Yeah, we get at least 8 people's opinions on this movie, because a lot of people just like don't even remember it. So I'm curious to know what others think of it. I've never got a really strong vibe for where it stands for people, but for me, it's probably at the bottom of the MCU.
Well, I think it's definitely at the bottom of the MCU. Well,
We'll find out as we keep going.
There's a couple up there.
Yeah. Or down there, as it may be.
Yeah, as it may be, correct.
But anyway...
Tune in next week when we watch the gold standard of superhero movies. A movie so good that not only by superhero movies standards is it good, but by regular movies, it is on my top 10. The Dark Knight.
2008's The Dark Knight. We'll have a lot more positive things to say next week, I'm sure. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys later. Bye.